Okay, once more, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This would be our 17th weekly update. It's been 17 weeks since we started this effort of keeping everybody informed. It is also the beginning of the new year. It's also where 5 new babies into the new year already, and expecting a sixth soon. And painting the picture of that is every time you have a newborn is the beginning of a new life and hope, full of aspirations and to a larger extent, or having a long-term view, it's actually the future of this community. And so what we're building here is really the future of that next generation that is born here, and it's going to grow here, and it's going to contribute tremendously to this community. It has been challenging managing all of that. It's, I was out on Martin Luther King Day, and we had a family that had just come straight from the hospital and was at the institute with us, and it was such an experience to have that family with us and just learn all the things that they are going through, and trying to figure out with the volunteers that showed up how we could support them in every way possible. So that was something. I'm also really grateful to the McCarthy Construction for coming out on Monday and working with us and trying to help us think logistically ways in which we could eventually migrate things from our gym into other storage in the building so that we can begin to use the gym for community activities. And for the volunteers that came out from the high school start program and welcome neighbors in supporting the computer drive. I think we ended up with over 50 computers and accessories that are going to be going out to families. Over 36 new Dell computers, laptops that are going to go out to families. So it was an incredible day, meaningful day for us to be out there doing that work. So I want to thank everybody that contributed in that effort, coming out to join us for Martin Luther King Day. This week, with over 450 Afghan arrivals in this effort now. We probably have 100 or slightly under 100 more to go. And I suspect it's going to end up being more than 100. But we're also seeing not just Afghan arrivals, we're beginning to see arrivals from other countries. I think we're expecting a Syrian family that's going to be coming in today, family of 8. So it's we're seeing also an uptick in arrivals of other refugees besides the Afghans, but we're able to manage it because of the infrastructure that has been created with everybody working together. Yesterday we had our partnership meeting at the command center of the institute, and it was amazing to see all of these organizations coming together and sitting down in the same room, and all of us trying to figure out ways in which we could really be responsive to all the needs that we get to deal with every day. And it was just a good feel moment for us to look back and see what we've been able to build together. Challenges, yes, there are still challenges, but that's why we're having this weekly conversation, so that you all can see how you can help. So at this point, I would turn this over. Today we're just going to obviously talk about the weekly update. We will also want to start talking about post-resettlement, right? So we will talk a little bit about post-resettlement support and services that we provide, because we're beginning to look at, okay, we've gone through this transitional period. What happens after we've put them into their homes, and how can we as a community continue to support that process. And we'll talk about opportunities for such support. And if there are questions, we'll take those at the end. With that, I'll turn this over to our Senior Vice President at the Institute, Blake Hamilton.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. As Ray mentioned, we have had a lot going on, and since we have been without this meeting for the last 2 weeks, I did want to provide updated numbers. So heading into our update for today, we have had 60 arrivals since we last met on the 5th of January. And in addition to that number, we're expecting another 42 individuals to arrive this week. Now, we did just get a cancellation, but we also had a surprise addition. So we're staying at that number for this week. We did have 19 individuals arrive yesterday, and we will, I believe, have another 14 now arrive today. So we're getting the vast majority of the folks are now front loaded for this week. And so we have some of our partners here at CFNA, at Welcome Neighbor, and others. When we get this information, of course, we share this out to see if we can get some support in welcoming folks at the airport and providing 24-hour home visits for them in the hotels where they're staying. If you're interested in helping us in this effort, please reach out and we can get you connected to our command center. As of prior to this week, after this week, pardon me, we're still expecting 74 more Afghan arrivals. Again, that program for resettlement is extending through February. And as Ray mentioned, we are beginning to see additional arrivals for refugees, though it's been one case here and one case there last week and this week. We have been notified that there's not an expectation that the refugee ceiling for this year will be hit. The refugee ceiling nationally is 62,500 arrivals, but we've seen sort of pessimistic estimates from our federal partners around their ability to process that many individuals, given the load that Afghan resettlement has taken on those federal programs. So while we have been touting our hope that we can resettle them another 970 refugees, between now and the end of this federal fiscal year, we're being told by our federal partners that we will likely not have an opportunity to do so. But these things have a way of responding to the people. We've seen advocacy and pressure on the presidential administration's past to meet the obligations set forth through the budgeting process in regards to refugee resettlement. And so we appreciate any advocacy efforts to ask our government to uphold its commitment to refugee resettlement. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. You know, if we can do it here in St. Louis, then it can be done on a federal level as well. And so we're very much asking for your support in helping advocate for a commitment to refugees to be fulfilled. In regards to housing, we are really reaching the end of the resettlement period for some of those folks that first arrived. We've chronicled for you our challenge in finding housing for larger cases, and we have several cases that by the end of this month will reach the end of their resettlement period. That's one case of 7, 3 cases of 8, and a case of 9. All these folks are still in temporary housing, and by the end of this month, they'll reach their 90th day, after which we will lose the ability to spend out funds for their housing. We are very much in desperate need of housing for these folks that can be procured in the next 10 days or so that we can begin spending out their funds on long-term housing rather than on short-term. So if anybody has any leads on 3 or 4 or 5 bedroom apartments, we would very much appreciate you reaching out to me and we can connect to our housing team to secure those apartments for these families, lest their resettlement funds be used solely for hotels. I have included the contact information for our housing department staff members on this slide. If you do have any leads, please include them in your correspondence, get them connected so that we can get these folks into housing as quickly as possible. We did not meet last week because, of course, we had a press conference, which I know some of you were actually present at, and others attended virtually. But I wanted to take a minute and kick it back over to Array to fill us back in on that announcement that was made last week around the St. Louis Community Response Initiative. Array?
I don't mute myself. Thank you very much, Blake, for that update. The announcement that was made last week was one that was very, very exciting, very welcome, and we are really grateful in the collaboration with Jerry Slichter in the process. It has been an ongoing conversation, and so we really happy with the creative outcome that they had. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to highlight and reiterate some of the things that were mentioned. And one aspect of it that is not actually highlighted there is the first is the fact that the way we looked at this is it's a community effort, and as a community effort, we should ensure that all stakeholders are involved in the process. And so the Archbishop did announce that we'll have this task force that's going to continuously think about how we can develop some creative programs that can make St. Louis really attractive. The goal here is not just only serving the Afghans that have arrived or those that were designated to come to St. Louis, but how can we ensure that there's continuous, people give St. Louis a second look, that there is secondary migration into St. Louis, because that will really demonstrate the results. And I really need to say that we're beginning to see a lot of interest in this approach, not just within this community, but even outside the community, because people are beginning to ask questions about how we're doing it. So the first piece of this is really the housing piece, where we're going to have a certain amount of funds that will enable us to be able to allay the concerns or fears that landlords may have with reference to the sustainability of the rentals for our Afghan families. And that's something that we're working on, and we're hoping that it's going to help us open up this bottleneck that we're having in terms of housing, at least for the near future. But there are other things that we thought that programmatically should be able to help really settle or resettle the Afghan community here. The first one is that we know that in the context of times that we're living, we should, that technology has become a mainstay. And we're working with Apple now to have this Apple computers, so that each family that comes, I think now we have just under slightly under 100 families that have arrived, but we'll have 200 iPads that we can give one to each family. Secondly, establish an Afghan newspaper, and there are other opportunities as well in this process, and that we're going to look at other community stakeholders that are in the business to see whether they can bring their expertise to help support the development of this newspaper. So if there's anybody on this call that has access to other media agencies that can collaborate with us, that expertise will be needed so that we can get this newspaper off the ground as soon as possible. The creation of an Afghan Chamber of Commerce will be intended to support existing Afghan businesses and to help grow new businesses. That will also be coupled with the entrepreneurship program that is designed to give seed money of 15,000 to 10 Afghan businesses that will be created in the community. We're also going to be working to implement an Afghan community center. Of course, this will entail the mobilization of the Afghan community, and our role is really going to be coordinating that. Access to the children, because we realized that the children that were staying at the Hyatt were going out to play soccer on the arch grounds. So I think beginning beginning on February 12th. We're looking at sometime in February for access to a soccer club on Saturday afternoons for Afghan children. We're also, as part of that package, working with Claim Academy to provide some skills development in coding with access to translators. So there will be some funds that are designated for translators in those coding classes. We're also going to be hiring a full-time implementation programs manager for all of these programs to support their implementation. But these are all creative ways in which we thought we could build an Afghan, really provide support to the Afghan community. And hopefully that word goes around and we'll begin to see more other Afghans who would have come to the United States and gone to other parts of the country that are not providing the kind of magic that we are providing here, and will attract them to St. Louis. That's what we have embarked on. Of course, it's not going to be easy. And again, this is not something that I'm looking at the International Institute doing it alone. Since this announcement, we have been fielding a lot of calls. Some people thought that this is something coming from the Arch grants, but it's not. It was just that Jerry was involved in the creation of the Arch. So this is support that has really been crafted by Jerry Sleeter and working with our board president, Arindam, and Blake and I, we arrived at this conclusions. So we've been fielding a lot of calls. So far, we have actually gotten some more commitments from people who want to continue to support the funding available for housing and other aspects of this. So eventually, we're going to be making even more announcements of how people are adding their efforts to this as time goes on. So I'll stop here and turn this over to Blake to talk about, post-resettlement.
Thanks, Ray. We're all, very excited to see this investment in the local community and really turning St. Louis into a very attractive place for arriving Afghans who have freedom of movement, right? This isn't just about making St. Louis a more welcoming place for the folks that are arriving here, but making it so welcoming that it is so appealing as to outcompete other options for folks and really build community here. So we're very excited to get this launch. Of course, we'll keep everybody up to date as we move forward. But moving forward, that's what time does. It only moves in one direction. And from the moment of arrival, refugees and Afghans are on the clock in the sense that they're a part of a program for resettlement that is time-bound. Resettlement as a program only lasts 90 days. So what happens during resettlement? Do we wave a magic wand and 90 days later, everybody has a perfect life and is ready and doesn't need any other supports? I think we all know that resettlement and adjusting to a new culture and transitioning to an entirely new life takes longer than 90 days. And thankfully, the federal government and very generous funders around this call also recognize the length of time that it takes to get families acclimated and standing on their own 2 feet. And what happens during the 90 days is very important in setting that stage, but it is not the end all be all. What happens during resettlement, what happens next is what we're going to go through here. And this is really just a brief high-level overview over the supports that are available to folks after they arrive and the types of services that they can continue to receive through the International Institute's programs. So during resettlement, there's a long laundry list of things that are required to occur. It's a very prescriptive program, and everything you see on this list and more are provided on a time-sensitive basis. Everything from pre-arrival preparation to airport pickups, registration for public benefits, school registration, English class enrollments for the adults, family budgeting, health screening, provision of clothing, all of this is provided in that first 90 days. And you can see that this is a long list of services, but in and of itself, it is not everything, right? It's a lot, but again, this is meant to provide a basis, a foundation for families to start their new lives here. It's meant to equip people with the right perspective to get build themselves an independent life here. So during this time, people are connected to benefits. They're beginning to have the documents that they need in order to get connected to employment. And employment is a key component of the rest of the programs that we have available that we'll talk about today. But it isn't the only supports that by any means that are available. After resettlement, there's many different programs that can support client needs, and we're featuring 3 of our largest programs here. And now I can say that there are others that are available, but we are really focusing on the larger programs for enrollment that are meeting a broad set of needs encountered by a lot of folks post-resettlement. So we have our Refugee Support Services program, our Preferred Communities program, and our Matching Grant program. And these are 3 programs that are available to arriving Afghans as well as all refugees who enter the program or who enter St. Louis. We are going to walk through the goal or focus of each of these programs, the services that are available within them, eligibility requirements for participation, and updates on cash assistance available through these programs. So refugee support services, the goal there is really removing barriers to accessing employment. The services provided in there are provided by case managers who work to prepare people for employment. So that means participating in our job readiness class, which gives people basic skills and understanding of the American workplace, the 40-hour work week, overtime, taxes, etc. A lot of this, punching a time clock, right? A lot of these are bits of information that we might take for granted, that we want to prepare all of our clients who are seeking employment with this information prior to accessing their first job. Enrollment in the program requires the completion of an individual employment plan for all employable adults, which looks not only at sort of the first job, but career, look at their educational background and work history to identify strategies for gaining employment that hopefully is in a related field, with the understanding that the first job might not necessarily be in that field, but establishes something of a pathway to access employment that is more commensurate with one's educational and professional background. They're also completing a family self-sufficiency plan, which is really a family budget, which looks at income, whether that's public benefit or earned income through employment, and how that matches up with bills that are incurred on a monthly basis. This is really a way to introduce the foundational home economics to our arriving clients, to look at kind of what is needed, not just on the economic side, but also addressing needs that are identified in the cases, any outstanding health needs or childcare or other sort of barriers to gaining employment by the adults that might need to be addressed in order for them to fully reach self-sufficiency. Of course, in full interaction with our employment services, which include job search, job placement, and job follow-up. So our team of job developers are working with employers to identify employment opportunities and screen candidates based on those employer needs. And then they will refer those clients for interviews and help, of course, with any sort of post-interview work, whether that's a drug test or completing tax forms, et cetera. And we also have follow-ups that are conducted after employment to ensure that there's a good match still between the employer and the client. There's another side, of course, to refugee support services, which really removes more intensive barriers to employment, whether those are intensive health or mental health barriers. There is case management available through our social work department, which is really focused on addressing some of these larger, more significant barriers to employment. And that is a lot of one-on-one support that helps mitigate and address those barriers. Our Preferred Communities program is for folks with a little bit more significant barriers, complex barriers to gaining employment. And the goal there is really reducing barriers to just generally a rich and fulfilling life. The goal and outcome of our Preferred Communities program is really to support cases the way they need support without a focus on a specific outcome as it relates to employment or anything like that. The services really involve a lot of intensive case management, which include things like healthcare navigation. There is financial literacy and budgeting, also parenting assistance, so social support groups, benefits assistance in terms of both applying and accessing and maintaining benefits, as well as connection to other regional community resources that might not be available through the Institute. This is really around focusing on the needs of a particular case and really navigating sort of complex barriers that can occur within these cases. There's other sort of program, we'll talk a bit more about qualifications for accessing PC and eligibility requirements in our next slide. The third program you see here is Matching Grant, which is really providing financial bonus to those who gain early employment. And the goal here is to get people employment quickly. This is a very popular program, especially amongst, I'd say, our Afghan population. Many folks arrive having heard from family members that you got to get in Matching Grant, you got to get into the Matching Grant program. Because when many Afghans arrived over the last decade, this is a program that was very beneficial because many of the special immigrant visa holders that were resettling had very high levels of English, very extensive professional backgrounds, which really made them great candidates for the Matching Grant program. The services there are really our full spectrum workforce solutions department services, which includes job readiness class, again, employment case management. But what this offers really is financial assistance in lieu of TANF or other public benefit, other cash assistance programs. So folks cannot be enrolled in those cash assistance programs and enrolled in Matching Grant simultaneously. The goal here is, of course, to provide enough financial incentive for employment that folks can sort of make ends meet early in the program, and once they gain employment, they're receiving bonuses that really outpace sort of what might be available to them for public assistance. So we'll go now to eligibility for these programs, as well as any cash assistance. For RSS, Refugee Support Services, eligibility requires that somebody is a refugee, SIV, asylee, or Afghan arrival in the US fewer than 5 years. Additionally, must be between the ages of 16 and 64 years old. And you'll see that sort of as a common set of eligibility criteria across these programs, with some tweaks here and there that we'll point out. The cash assistance at this point that's available to arriving Afghans or refugees in RSS is really limited at this point to rental assistance for Afghan arrivals only. There are special provisions in the Afghan version of Refugee Support Services that was made available to us that really restrict financial assistance purely to rental assistance and that type of supportive service to eliminate housing barriers. Within the Preferred Communities Program, it's the same sort of status criteria: refugees, SIVs, asylees, or Afghan arrivals in the US fewer than 5 years. But we say 5 years with barriers. And so some of those barriers might be the fact that maybe somebody is a part of a single parent household. There's challenges or issues between the parent and child. There could be physical or emotional health challenges. There could be young adults without parents or minors unaccompanied by parents. There could be LGBTQIA clients arriving or HIV positive, folks who have maybe a history of substance abuse or disability, folks with who are secondary migrants are also eligible for this program. So folks who are making their way to St. Louis and are still within their first 5 years and meet these criteria would also be eligible for this program. This program also serves folks who are survivors of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. So you can see that we're really looking within this program to really provide additional supportive services to those that face additional barriers beyond the fact that they're arriving as a refugee or asylee. The cash assistance available here is really, again, reserved for Afghan arrivals, but it is a little bit more expansive. We do have we've received a supplement to our Preferred Communities Program that allows us to provide additional food, rental, and medical assistance, as well as transportation assistance. We're using those transportation assistance funds to pay for Uber and Lyft rides for our clients who need medical assistance. within this program. And of course, that rental assistance is going to help us beyond the rental assistance that's available within that first 90-day period under the resettlement program. Finally, the matching grant eligibility criteria, again, refugee, SIV, asylee, or Afghan arrival in the U.S. fewer than 5 years, but must be work eligible, essentially 16 to 64 years old. The cash assistance that's provided is paid out as bonuses. So there's weekly bonus and employment bonuses. And those employment bonuses really kick in when somebody has employment 120 days after arrival. They also get another bonus again at 180 days after arrival. So this is about gaining early employment, being rewarded for that at these various intervals. And we get this question all the time, so I'm going to let you know. Yes, if a client is employed at one job at 120 days, they leave that job and find another at 180 days, as long as they're employed at these markers, they get that benefit. So these are, again, 3 of our main programs that are available for arrivals after the resettlement period. There are others, but they're often serving more specific needs. So I asked the question, what other programs and services are available after resettlement? Yes, there are many. Elderly program, we have our ESL services, of course, available. Our youth mentoring program, a career pathways program for those who are seeking access to career and not just a job. Immigration services to help folks with transition between statuses, get their green card, apply for citizenship, etc. We have our free tax filing services, which are just now open and will be available through tax day. This is available to all of our clients. Interpretation and translation, of course, are services that we provide, not just to clients, but to the community writ large. We have our citizenship classes to help folks on the path to citizenship, computer classes, micro lending and economic development services for folks who have been employed for 90 days. Likewise, small business development for those folks who are looking to start or expand their small business. Our after-school program for youth, as well as our mental health and wellness programs available through our social work department. So there's a wide variety of both programs and services that are available. But one thing we want to make clear is that programs are a set of services, and services are often identified as one-off interventions. So when somebody enrolls in a program, there's a suite of services that they, in some cases, are required to go through. You can imagine matching grant is not a great program for somebody that doesn't want to gain employment quickly, right? So there are activities within that matching grant program services that they might not be interested in accessing, which wouldn't make them a good fit for the matching grant program. So we're constantly evaluating clients' need and matching that to the programs that we have available. We have an intake department that we're establishing now. We have some hires that have just joined us that are building our capacity. And so when you're interacting with clients you think might be a good fit for these services, the first connection for us is through our intake and assessment process, where we meet with the client, understand their needs, and make referrals to the programs that might make the best fit. We'll be providing you with more information. We are now updating our programs listing document, which has more information about these programs and others. And we'll be making that available to everybody on this list once that is updated for our current programs as of 2022. So I'll go ahead and pause there. I know there's gonna be a lot of questions about this, but if you could start entering those into the chat, we can get to them as we wrap up sort of the next couple of sections here. I'm not sure if Carlos is here and available to kind of walk us through some of these opportunities for Spur. Oh, there you are, Carlos. I'll kick it over to Carlos for the next couple of slides here. Carlos?
Well, thanks, Blake, and great to see everybody again this afternoon. And just to highlight some really exciting things that happened over the course of the last couple days, we did have our MLK Day drive, where we on Monday we had a donation drive for individuals that brought over laptops, usable laptops that were 3 years or younger. So we had a good number of I would say at least probably 50 to 60 laptops that were brought over, so that we can actually start giving these to families as they arrive, so they can start using them as soon as possible. And a number of things like comforters and lamps that are just still needed as individuals are moving into their housing. So we want to thank everyone who helped out, especially Welcome Neighbor and our partners on this exciting event. And for those that are still looking to want to build a coalition around our work here to support our new arrivals, we have weekly gatherings to talk about our constant needs and really highlighting how we can work together as effective partners. We're looking for networks of individuals, in particular volunteers, and more of the essential needs include support with airport arrivals and transportation from as individuals arriving to the St. Louis airport and then going to the hotel. Also with grocery shopping on a regular basis, and then also moving or setting up apartments as individuals are moving into their housing. So those are kind of some areas in which we're collaborating on, and in addition to other outside of the box activities and needs that we have on an ongoing basis. So we're always looking for creative ways to really meet these solutions, and working with our partners to help build a solid community coalition. And we're extremely thankful for our partners that have come to the table so far. And these have also included really building relationships with our new arrivals with luncheons and meals while we have our clients at the hotels. So if there's any questions, feel free to reach out here for at our command center, and also our community support program. Colleague Wafa is also happy to talk with our partners as well. We're also looking for consistent, constant donations where we're running into, we're looking for more grocery cards, specifically to Schnucks and Aldi. That's where the majority of our clients are using these markets based on accessibility to the hotels in which they're staying at. So this is a constant need, as you can imagine, with over 100 people staying at these hotels. We're constantly providing them these gift cards so they can purchase foods for them and their families.
And I would just to add to that, we are seeing significant delays in applications for food stamps being processed. And what that means is that we are still committed to providing food supports for folks until they are able to access those supports. So the donations that are coming in are not just going to our clients that are at the hotels, but because of longer than expected, longer than historically observed delays in the processing of food stamp applications, we're providing food supports for the vast majority of our families that have arrived to this point on a weekly basis. So those donations are going out very quickly. So we appreciate everything that you all can do to help kind of raise the profile of the food needs for folks who are arriving.
Yes, and also in addition, we're going through a number of rides via Uber. So any gift cards for Uber rides is also greatly appreciated. As you can imagine, a lot of people have a lot of medical attention that they need as they get here to St. Louis, and also just things to follow up on. As already mentioned, we had 5 babies since the new year, and we are expecting quite a number of more. So all this support really helps us create a swift and fluid response to these ongoing needs and challenges that our greater Afghan community is facing. So, and then of course, we are extremely grateful for continued cash donations to the Institute as well. And if there's interest in allocating that towards specific needs, such as groceries or transportation, we'd be happy to entertain that conversation too and allocate those accordingly. And I don't know if there's anything else that Ari or Blake want to add on to this, but I think that covers the majority of things.
Well, thank you very much, Carlos, and I want to thank you and your team at the Command Center for the work you're doing. It's a really great collaborative effort, and we're learning as we go along, and we're figuring things out together, and that has been really successful. At this point, we're going to open up for any questions from our audience, and I would look up here to make sure that I'm not missing a question that's in the.
I'll add one more thing, that behind me is a wall of signatures. So everyone who comes to the Command Center, we love the community support that we've been having so far. So we invite everyone to kind of sign our wall of gratitude and collaboration and really make a big splash with this. So thank you guys again.
Yeah. Great. Kelly, anything you would like to add with reference to, because I know you're out there working with the community. And
I am just really thrilled that people are on this call after, 17 weeks. We did have a small mishap with our phone system, so I'm a little behind on messages. And somebody today, actually Elizabeth George on the call, was giving me some grace this morning because I only responded to her email in one day. So I am hoping that those 25 other people have grace as much as Elizabeth does. Carlos and I and many of our other staff have been working tirelessly for this awesome experience. So thank you for all of you for giving us a little grace. Thank you for believing in us and for letting us continue this great work. Oh, we still need a few lamps. We didn't have that. We weren't super successful in the lamp category, like the donations of lamps. So
Kelly, why are the lamps important? Can you?
So with every house, with every family that we resettle, we put them in housing, and most of the housing that we are finding typically do not have ceiling lights or fluorescent lights like we do. And so basically every room would need either a floor lamp or a desk lamp, or not a desk lamp, sorry, table lamp or floor lamp. Many of the families that we've put in houses, and maybe in a month or so, have received only one lamp because our restrictions, basically we're juggling the mandates and also just the spaces. So we'd love to give 5 lamps or 4 lamps to every family, but we're doing our best to do that. So that's why it's important. Basically, think about a city apartment with no ceiling lights. In my house, I have 2 floor lamps in one of my rooms. So it's just, they're needed for that purpose.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kelly. Blake, there is a question that I'm going to turn over to you with reference to eligibility for reduced rate bus passes.
Yeah, so our clients are eligible for reduced rate bus passes, and we actually purchase those through their resettlement accounts in bulk. So we have quite a few bus passes that are purchased that clients can get from their caseworker here at the Institute. And we help sort of with the reapplication for that for anybody who needs assistance beyond our beyond the resettlement passes that we provide. We are though looking for volunteers who can help us as bus trainers. We're looking for folks who can help our clients get on the bus, navigate accessing transfers, et cetera, purchasing tickets from kiosks, that sort of thing. If you or somebody you know are eligible to help volunteer, we like to pair this with our job readiness class. For many folks who are trying to find jobs that are on the bus line when they don't have their own personal transportation. So that requires being comfortable and able to navigate public transportation. So we like to take our job readiness class participants on a bus ride as part of that. And that's functionally something we've had volunteers help us with in the past, and we'd love to get that going again. If you can help us kind of promote that opportunity, that's a volunteer opportunity that's been on our website for some time. But there you can learn more about kind of what we're looking for. But if anybody's interested, yeah, please refer them to our site.
Great, thank you very much, Blake. Any other questions that or anything that we have not covered? Carrie? Any?
Not necessarily anything that we haven't covered, but I did want to make an announcement. We recently wrapped the spice drive with Global Foods. So Kelly received that donation from the team over there last week. It was over, what, 300 pounds of spices that were able to be donated to our clients and families. I don't know why Kelly's making that face.
Well, I was able to lift the 2 boxes, so I'm pretty sure it
Well,
wasn't.
in total, they collected, because we received some of those donations, St. Louis area food banks and other, food scarcity type organizations received those donations. So when we talk about food provisions, not only is it, the quote unquote meat and potatoes of a meal, but the seasonings and spices really help to, enrich and bring that taste of home to St. Louis. So we're very thankful for that donation drive. And as Carlos mentioned, if there are other collaborative donation drives or initiatives that you might have ideas on, we'd be happy to, further those conversations on those too.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Carrie, for that, for sharing that. With that, I think we've seen no other questions. I think we have exhausted our agenda here today. I want to thank you all for being here. We'll be back next week. Our goal is to at least keep this going till the effort ends somewhere in the middle of February. But because we're seeing this uptick in arrivals, those challenges continue to be. We're looking at that next phase now, what happens post-arrival, because our work as a community doesn't just end with resettlement, but it's really creating pathways for our new neighbors to thrive within the community. And by so doing, if they thrive, it is the entire community that becomes prosperous. So thank you very much for your time, your support, your attention, and have a great rest of the day and rest of the weekend. We'll see you all next weekend. Thank you.